And the people that you see, they're busy, they're tired, they're exhausted,
Yeah.
probably anxious as a result of all of those things. So do you tell them to slow down?
Yeah.
And do they say, but Clodagh, I could have fucking told myself that?
So I think what it is, it's about helping people connect with what life is like for them at the moment. And if it's not how they want it to feel, what can change and what can give. It's women that are tired, feeling anxious, tired for a multitude of reasons. Tired from anxiety, tired from being really busy and trying to juggle all of the balls and all of the roles that, you know, we live with.
You had hyperemesis, didn't you?
I had hyperemesis.
Did you have that in your previous 2 pregnancies?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I see it regularly in the pharmacy.
It's so hard.
Very debilitating. Did the caravan help you, or? It's been wonderful, the menopause conversation and the female conversation that's gone on around women's health, because it was so forgotten about for so long, or just not talked about. We've spoken about the male midlife crisis in a kind of a jokey manner before, but it's very real for them. They lose a percentage of their testosterone every year from their 40s onwards. And it does affect them, and it does make them feel less than, and it does affect their outlook in life. What's expected of men nowadays is very different than what was expected of their fathers, because men are expected to be there for their wives and their children in a different way than they were years and years ago, I suppose. We need to mind our men too.
And maybe they have this idea of being the provider, having to work incredibly hard to provide. I went on and did adoption research for my master's and my doctorate, and spoke about the experience of adoption for the adopted person, and also the psychological and emotional impact. So many adopted people experience that.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Lower Down Experience podcast. And today I'm joined by the incredible Dr. Clodagh Campbell, who is also known as the Wellness Psychologist. Clodagh is a chartered psychologist, speaker, author, and host of award-winning podcast Unspoken, where she explores the life challenges that so many people experience but rarely talk about. Clodagh holds a doctorate in psychology from Trinity College Dublin, and has over a decade of clinical experience specialising in helping individuals navigate anxiety, trauma, self-worth and emotional overwhelm. And actually, that's what I really want to talk to you today about, Clodagh, because so many people have anxiety, have overwhelm. And I know that's something that you talk about a lot on your page, because you have it yourself, which is great, because you can tap into people and how they're feeling.
Yeah.
And you've recently written a book, and we'll get into that too, because it's a great little book, really handy, a guide for people how to manage their, I suppose, psyche, manage themselves, manage life. So let's get into it. How did you get into psychology?
There's an inside joke with psychologists that we go into psychology to try figure ourselves out.
Okay.
So that's the answer. No. So I really struggled. In my teens. I felt really anxious. I found it really hard to trust people, to feel safe in my relationships. So I was juggling anxiety, but also then anxiety from all of that stuff, different layers and levels of anxiety.
And do you know why that was? Why you couldn't trust people? That's a grand statement.
Yeah. So I was adopted and always knew I was adopted. So, growing up when I was a child, didn't necessarily understand or wasn't consciously aware of the impact that had on me. But certainly as I kind of got through my teens and then into my 20s, 30s, started to see the massive impact that it had on me. So I didn't trust people, because I suppose my first experience of a relationship was being given away.
Okay.
And, now knowing the fuller picture and the full story behind it all, and I can talk about it with that idea of it was out of love, and people wanted me to, have that quintessential family life, growing up with 2 adoring parents and everything I could ever need, which is what I had. I was a much longed for, much loved child. But despite that, I really struggled to feel safe in my relationships, even though at 2 weeks old, I was handed to this most loving pair that absolutely adored me. I feared experiencing abandonment again.
And do you think it's because you were told that you were adopted from a young age? Or do you think it was because that baby knew that it was adopted?
Yeah.
Which one is the case? Are babies that aware?
Yeah. I think
Okay.
it was that a traumatic separation. And particularly as a mother now, it has to have impacted me. You know, when I've held my 3 newborn babies in the hospital, I just can't imagine what it would be like for them if I just put them in a little cot and just left them. And I don't know, for 2 weeks I was in foster care. I don't know what those 2 weeks looked like for me. Did somebody come when I was crying? Was I fed when I needed to be fed? So I absolutely think that that was a traumatic experience for me and every other adopted person that goes through it. I went on and did adoption research for my master's and my doctorate and spoke about the experience of adoption for the adopted person and also the psychological and emotional impact across the 2 different research pieces that I did. So many adopted people experience that, whether it's kind of an awareness that comes later, but that just fear of abandonment, the fear of experiencing that pain again. Yeah, when I held my newborn babies and, they're so helpless and vulnerable and they would have known my voice and my smell and my touch. So if I just handed them over to somebody else, I imagine that would have been really, really hard for them. And I have no memories of that time in my life, but the body remembers. I really believe that. The body remembers. And
Have you ever had any kickback from people who've been adopted when you've spoken about this, saying, I didn't experience any of that? What are you talking about? Like, I actually had a great life. I wouldn't have had as good a life if I hadn't have been put up for adoption.
yeah,
Do you ever experience any pushback, or do people accept it?
I don't remember anyone ever saying to me no, but when I went into those research interviews, it was just to explore people's experiences.
Okay.
It wasn't that I was saying to them, this is what the research shows. This has to have been your experience. It was listening to their experience and them telling me what it was like for them. And, maybe with my awareness as a psychologist and an expert in the field of adoption, maybe when I was listening to their experiences, could hold the understanding at a deeper level than maybe they even could, because that was my area, that was my niche. I had researched so much about it.
Okay.
And both can be true. So I definitely was impacted by my early experience, but also I grew up in the most loving home. There is no part of me that ever has wished that I didn't grow up with my parents. I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad this is how my life has turned out. So yes, it impacted me, but I also had a gorgeous upbringing and always felt so loved and so adored by my parents. And, I now work in this area because of the pain and the difficulty. And I think it probably definitely makes me a better psychologist.
So then we think about all those people who were placed in adoption and they were never able to find out anything about their birth family.
Yeah.
Or they were actually ripped from their mothers. The mothers didn't even want them to leave. We think of
Yeah.
all of those poor
Yeah.
women who were forced to give up their children as well.
Yeah.
The impact of it probably
Yeah.
is multi-generational.
Yeah.
And there is that generational trauma, isn't there?
100%. And that's the thing. I'm sure for 99% of women who have had to part with their children, it has been the hardest thing that they've ever had to experience, and something that I imagine many, many women wish didn't have had to happen or wish they could have changed that. So when I talk about the impact it's had on me, it's also with the awareness that, birth mothers have their own massive trauma that they have to navigate.
Yeah.
And we all just do our best in life, don't we? We do our best with what we have and how resourced we are in the time. Some people maybe make the decision for themselves. Sometimes the decision is taken out of their hands. So it's complex and it's hard and it's really sad. Like, adoption is really sad. And growing up, there was a part of me that always wanted to adopt a baby, to give to a baby that was in need of love and care and all of the things that I was offered, to be able to give that to a little baby who maybe was abandoned, but now I have 3 children. I'm like, that's enough.
3 of your own.
3 of my own, that's enough.
It's difficult to adopt in Ireland now as well. It isn't easy at all, I don't think.
Yeah.
So sorry, I totally made you go on a meander there, because you were saying you grew up not trusting people. You grew up finding it difficult to trust people in relationships. So that was anxiety in one area. And then also on top of that, you were just an anxious person as well. Yeah. And I don't say that to belittle saying just an anxious person, because I know that anxiety can be huge and have a huge impact on people's lives.
Yeah.
But my original question is why did you get into psychology? And you think that this is the reason why. So what did you study when you finished school?
Psychology.
Oh, you studied psychology?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you went on and did obviously a doctorate?
I went straight from 6th year into a psychology degree. And then I went straight from that into a psychology master's. Then I took 1 year out to gain relevant clinical experience, because the doctorates can be really competitive to get onto. And then I applied for every single doctorate I could, and started the doctorate that year. So I was very like, this is what I'm going to do, and went for it. And I'm so glad I did, because I could not go back now and do it. It's hard and it's long. I'm sure it's similar for pharmacy. Mm-hmm. So I'm the type of person that when I have a focus or a goal, I will do it. And then afterwards be like, thank God that's over.
Yeah.
I'm wrecked now.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me what you see in practice a lot. Because I just stuck up that you were an expert in anxiety, because I know that it's something that you talk about a lot, anxiety and overwhelm. Mm. And I only put it up about half an hour before you arrived at the studio, and already there was hundreds and hundreds of questions in about anxiety. They're all fairly similar-ish, if I was to be honest with you. It's how do I cope with anxiety? How do I help my 13-year-old daughter cope with anxiety? She wakes up in the morning, she doesn't want to go to school. Is nausea is that anxiety? All of those things. So maybe we could break it down and just make it simple for people. Do you want to maybe talk about it?
It's funny, half of my career I worked solely with men.
Oh.
And the second half of my career now I'm working mainly with women.
See, there's another question in there already that I have, and you haven't even answered the first one. Why only men?
So I worked in the prison service.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so during my doctorate, I did a year's experience in the prison service. And then when I graduated, I went back into the prison service, and I stayed there for about 7 years. And I only ever worked in the male prisons.
Okay.
Loved it. Really enjoyed my time there. But reached a point where I think I had done my time, and then it was ready to move on. Yeah. And actually that really showed me where I wanted to move on to.
Okay.
So now since a year after my second daughter was born, I've been working privately. I think I've had one male client since that time in, 3 years, 3.5 years, because mainly it's women, I think, that are attracted to working with me. And my Instagram following. My clients come from Instagram, and my Instagram following is 97% women. So I see women mainly, and it's women that are tired, that are feeling anxious, that are like tired for a multitude of reasons. Tired from anxiety, tired from being really busy and trying to juggle all of the balls and all of the roles that, we live with. Most of my clients work, so they're balancing, successful careers, busy careers with home life, whatever that looks like. The responsibilities then maybe of children or older parents, or, all of the things that we're all navigating. And life just has to continue going on and on and on. And then that doesn't even tap into, fertility struggles or relationships breaking up, or, navigating menopause, or grief, loss, all of the things that kind of come.
Life's tough, isn't it?
Life is tough, and it's busy, and that makes it even harder. The busyness compounds everything, because we don't really have that opportunity to catch our breath. If a parent dies or if we have a miscarriage, often we don't really have the opportunity to just pause and look after ourselves in the way that we need to, because we have to go back to work, or we have to go back to life.
Yeah.
And that definitely makes it harder.
Yeah.
So actually what's been really life-changing for me, and when you hear these terms life-changing, you kind of think, oh yeah, whatever. But actually genuinely what has been really life-changing for me has been allowing myself to slow down the busyness in my life. And it's not always accessible for people. It's not always possible to do that. But even to think, how can I do that in a small way? That really changes things. It's definitely changed things for me, where I don't always have to be in that rush hamster wheel. And the reason I did it was because I came to the end of 2023 and I was so burnt out, like so exhausted, so busy. It felt, when you're in that period where it's like, I just need to get to the end of this week and then things will be easier. And you mean it, like you genuinely believe it. I need to get to this deadline, or I need to finish this thing, and then I can slow down. And then the next week something else pops up, or you take on
or
something.
10 other things pop up.
Yeah. Or sometimes I misjudge things as well. So it's like, I'll get to the next week and I'll realize that actually I had way more things on than I thought were going to be in the diary. Or
a little bit of time blindness there,
Clodagh. A lot of time blindness. Or it's back to, so either there might be 10 things in the diary that I wasn't anticipating, or there could be one thing that I thought maybe would take a day, but actually will take me 3 days. So I was in that, like on that hamster wheel where it was like never ending. I was always saying to my friends, I had this like really vivid memory of being out for a walk one evening and saying to my friend, next week will be easier. And she was like, yeah, sure. Because she had heard it from me so many times before. So yes, if we can slow down, it really helps, but it's hard to slow down.
Well, that's the thing. So I would say that sounds great, Clodagh. I'd love to slow down.
Yeah.
But how do I do it? And keep everything going?
Yeah.
That's the tough part. Is it just deciding what's important and what isn't?
Yeah, it's like what can go, what can give. So your kids can't give, obviously.
I'm only messing, boys. I love you. Yeah.
As if they listen.
Come on, Laura. You're so mortifying, Mom.
You and your vulva.
You and your vulva. Would you put that thing away?
Stop wearing bikinis publicly.
I know. The poor little fellas. Oh, when I think about it, they're going to be sitting in an armchair opposite someone like you in their 20s or 30s, blaming their mother for all their woes. I just know they are.
They will. And so will my kids.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't have the body to wear a bikini in public. If I did, I would.
It is. We all have the body. That's the point. We all have the body, no matter what age. We actually do. That is the reality. And you're a gorgeous lady. And, and I think that's the problem. We're always comparing ourselves to other people, particularly like postpartum period. Our bodies are designed to be not what they were when they're 21. That's the reality.
Yeah.
But we digress. So slowing down is really important. I hear that.
So your question was, but how do I slow down?
Yeah.
And that will be everybody's question. And I suppose, if I were to say to you, well, what could give? How does that even feel when I ask you that question?
I actually have a little bit of a churn in my tummy. That's very strange, isn't it? Because I'm kind of thinking, there is something that could give, but that would mean then, I'd literally just have to park it, but maybe I just need to make my peace with that.
So there's a consequence if something gives.
But it's not the end of the world if something gives, actually. It'd be the end of the world if, you're right. It's what's important in life. Obviously, kids, food and boys, very important. But then the next step, I suppose, let's keep the food on the table. So it's business, but you don't necessarily have to do everything at once.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, I remember I started working with a life coach and I had these massive goals. It was like I wanted to get a book deal, write a book, start a podcast.
Tick, tick, tick.
Have a massive following on Instagram. I wanted to be the person that, if a TV show needed a psychologist, my name would come to mind. Like I'd be one of like 3 people that they'd be like, oh, well, ask Clodagh because she's in our mind now. So I was really ambitious. I was really determined. And in that month, so it was like November, December 2023, I was sitting with a friend, a really trusted friend, and I was saying to her, like, Paula's so cross at me because in the evenings, I've like an hour in the evenings with the girls and I'm on my phone I'm on Instagram, or I'm, in that state of, I just have to reply to this email, Paul. I'm really sorry, but there's a deadline. I have to reply.
Paul's your husband, I gather.
Paul's my husband.
Okay.
I was talking to my friend and I was like, I just can't continue like this because he's cross at me. I'm not spending my time with the girls. Like, I'm feeling disconnected from them. I can't remember the last time that I actually saw my friends. Or I tend to have, when I'm busy, I have this pattern of I'll go silent and then all of a sudden I'll be back and I'll be like, hi girls, let's meet up next Tuesday. We'll go for drinks. And that can feel very intense then as well for my friends.
And then when they don't respond, we're like, is everything okay? Is everything okay? Is everything okay?
Okay. Yeah. Why haven't they replied to me?
Do they not know who I am?
We have these ideas about people, don't we? Particularly people who maybe share their lives on Instagram. So at that time, when I was crying to my friend and my husband was cross at me and I was feeling so disconnected from my girls, there would be people, I imagine, that were like, oh, look at her go. Like, she's doing really well at the moment.
Yeah.
Like, she's just hit like 100,000 followers on Instagram. She's just, I think I had just actually signed my book deal at that time, was like delighted, but also thinking, oh, now I have to actually
write a book. Yeah.
Like, don't even have time to say hello to my children. When's the book going to fit in?
Yeah.
My husband's not talking to me.
Yeah.
Like, we never know these things, do we?
No.
We don't, unless we share.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was in that point and I was saying, arguing with Paul, the girls are running, they're running to their daddy. That's the thing as well. If one of them woke up in the middle of the night and they shouted for daddy, that would, like, that as a mom, I remember having this fantasy that, I really feared rejection. When I become a mom, my children will love me unconditionally. They'll never reject me because all they'll want is me. So then when I actually became a mom and realised that our children reject us multiple times a day, and it's actually for me, it's the most painful form of rejection. Why did no one ever tell me that, Laura? I don't know if that's...
Wait till they hit their teens. Jesus, you're in for a rough ride there, honey.
And 3 girls as well.
I know, yeah. They know exactly how to hit your buttons as well.
Yeah, they already do.
Oh, gas, isn't it?
So I was in that point, it's like, something has to give. And it was only in that moment, I remember just thinking, I have to just stop. It was coming up to Christmas, so it was probably, thankfully, a time where I knew there was a pause coming. But I remember just thinking, I have to go back to basics. I just have to start journaling because I don't know why I'm in this position. Like, I'm so tired. I'm so disconnected. I'm not happy. I actually was feeling a bit low at the time as well because of all the disconnection and all, like, Paul arguing with me arguing with Paul, all of that going on. So I remember I just started to journal, and in the journaling process came that awareness of I am pushing myself so hard in every aspect of my life to prove myself. Like,
to who? Just to prove yourself
to
to yourself?
Yeah.
Because no one else cares.
No.
Yeah.
It was to me to prove that I was of worth, and that to give you an example, I remember I had the goal that I wanted to meet financially with my business. But the goal was never set. If I met that goal, or with Instagram followers, I would just whack on, another 20, 20,000 followers, or I want to earn 20,000 more.
So the goalposts keep moving.
Yeah. And I would celebrate, and I was grateful, but the celebration, would have the little moment, buy the little balloon with, 40k on it or whatever. But then in the next breath, I'd be like, okay, now we go again. So I was just continuously trying to prove to myself, maybe to other people as well, because that's, what it felt like, that I was of worth, that I was of value, that I was, to my friends, I don't know, interesting enough, smart enough, worthy enough for them to keep me in their lives, to my children.
Do you think a lot of people are like that, trying to prove themselves to others?
Yes. But I think behind it all, it was that I was just trying to prove it to myself.
Okay.
Yeah. So maybe it was easier to, and it wasn't, I don't think it was conscious. So that's what I'm saying. When I sat down and started the journaling process, because I journal a lot, but at that time I wasn't, because I was so busy running from one thing to the next. So when I sat down and started journaling and started realizing that I was putting so much pressure on myself, that's when I had that idea, or that kind of recognition of, oh, so a bit like I said to you a little while ago, well, what can give? And I was thinking, I don't want to be the person that's on TV all the time. Like, I actually don't get enjoyment out of going on a TV segment.
Yeah.
Sorry to all of the TV segments that I've been on recently promoting my book, but I actually don't really like that.
It's okay to say that though, Clodagh.
Yeah.
I just told you I don't like going to weddings.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay to say that.
Whose wedding do you have coming up this year now?
I don't have any. Yeah, everyone knows now. They don't invite me. I have no weddings, actually. No, but those big, large social gatherings, I just find I love one-to-ones or one-to-threes, or, you know, where you're in a smaller group and you can really have those deep conversations. Sometimes I find the larger group social gatherings, sometimes I just find my social battery just drained.
Oh my God. I actually was on a TV segment recently, and it was like, they didn't even see me. It was like, okay, we're so busy with this guest and this thing that we're going to have her on now in 5 minutes. But they didn't even look in my eye. They just like ushered me. And then, you know, the minute it was finished, they like ushered me away out the door, chaperoned me to the door, get out of here. And it just, that wasn't meaningful for me at all. You know, it was just kind of like, why am I even here doing this? And then afterwards, the next day, I was so tired. Like you say, it like really drained my batteries. So in that moment, throughout the journaling process, the end of 2023, I realized actually what's important to me are my relationships with Paul, with the girls, with my close friends. I'm the type of person, I have really, really close friends, and I might not have 50 friends, but I'll have like 10 friends I'm really, really close to, and really, really lucky to have them. They're the things that are important to me. My relationship with my mom, my relationship with, you know, Paul's family, my in-laws. So what's going to give for me to actually feel like I can be connected to these people again, particularly my children and my husband? You know, I wanted them to have a present mom. So I was thinking, well, I can't work this hard anymore. So what will be what's going to happen if I don't work this hard anymore? And I was thinking, well, I need to talk to Paul about that, because obviously finances are important, and we have a mortgage and we have bills to pay. But actually it was thinking, well, maybe we won't get to go on that extra holiday, you know, next year, but I'll feel happier and more connected to my children.
You may not need the holiday if you're actually rested anyway, because your life isn't so busy.
I don't know if I'll ever feel rested, to be honest.
Okay. Overstatement.
I don't know if any mom ever feels rested, but yeah, not as dysregulated maybe. Yeah, if I don't have to work on a Saturday, then I can go for a walk in a forest with my children, and that kind of fills up my cup as well. So, like, to go on what you've just said, I probably wouldn't necessarily need the escape as much.
Yeah.
If I weren't as busy. But what happened in that period then was I fell pregnant and was really sick.
I am going to just reduce time work and spend more time filling up my cup with my children. Whoops. Okay.
Now
you had hyperemesis, didn't you?
I had hyperemesis.
Did you have that in your previous 2 pregnancies?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I see it regularly in the pharmacy.
It's so hard.
Very debilitating.
It's so hard.
Did the caravan help you, or?
So on my first, it took me a while to get to the caravan. I went to a doctor and she prescribed me really old-fashioned meds. That's how Hollis Street actually described it to me when I went in. I should have just gone straight into Hollis Street. And I lived nearby them as well. You know, it's just, I didn't know what to do. Went to my GP.
Yeah.
So those meds, like, I would literally wake up at 5 a.m. and have to run, you know, my nausea would wake me, and then I'd take the meds, and then, it was just awful. So when I got the caravan, it lessened, it made life easier, but I always felt sick. Okay. Always, even on that. And on my first, they didn't have the hyperemesis clinic. On my second, I went to a day ward once a week and got fluids And that kind of just kept me going for the week. Didn't have any of that on my first. So second time it was easier because I had more support, and straight away I went on the meds.
Yeah.
Like when I was 5 weeks pregnant, I could feel the nausea start, went straight away. And then on my third, same again, went on the meds straight away. We were on holidays and we came home, but Paul stayed for a few extra days. And when we were leaving, my 7-year-old got a bug. You know, when you're just about to, we were leaving the accommodation to go to the airport, and I was like, oh my God, she is going to be vomiting the whole way home from Florida.
Oh yeah. The gift that keeps giving is children on holidays, isn't it? We had one of those coming home from France once. It was delightful. Puking all over a rented car. Oh my God.
So yeah, I flew home without my husband. My mum was with us, with Maya having a vomiting bug. And then my second daughter got the vomiting bug. And then I started vomiting because of the early pregnancy. So my mum went home. We dropped her, you know, we went to our house. My mum went to her house. And then a few days later, before Paul came back from the holiday, I had to ring her and say, so I said to her, I have the vomiting bug now as well. You have to come up and look after us, please, please. So she came up and she took one look at me and she said, are you pregnant?
Oh, really?
This is what you look like when you have hyperemesis. Okay. I was like, yes.
Oh gosh.
So straight away I got support on my third. But interestingly, so on my first and second, I had it till they were born. Like I was vomiting in the delivery room with my first two. My second, it lessened. Like it kind of really got a lot easier.
Third, it lessened?
On my third, it lessened. Yeah, sorry. So actually the second half of my pregnancy on her was much easier than the first two. Yeah, so I don't know why. I thought she was a boy, actually. I was convinced she was a boy for that reason.
Pops, little Fanny Annie.
Yeah.
Gas, isn't it?
So yes, fell pregnant and then couldn't do a thing. So to go back to, I'm going to slow down now, like literally was bedbound for a couple of months on my third pregnancy. Couldn't even look at my phone. I was so sick. So it, like the universe has a funny way of sometimes we say something, we need to slow down, and the universe is like, here you go.
Yeah, I'll slow you down.
I'll slow you down. And like whenever opportunities were coming in, I had to say no because I literally couldn't even stand up out of bed because I was so sick.
Yeah.
And it taught me a really valuable lesson in that it's okay to say no. And even if you say no and you're not taking in money when you're self-employed, you'll get through it. Mm-hmm. Like you will survive it. And I suppose I was fortunate that we were able to survive me not working in that way as much. To be honest, my book deal really helped me that year.
Okay.
Because I had just signed my book deal and then I fell pregnant, and then the book deal kind of gave me a little bit of fallback because I was earning no money from my business because I was just lying in bed all day, every day for months. So what that really taught me when I started to feel a bit better, because as I said, on her, the sickness got easier to manage. It showed me what it was like to feel regulated, like to have a regulated nervous system where I was just like, life felt really slow, but like manageable. So then I wrote the book, but actually because I had said no to everything else, all I had to do in those couple of months where I wrote the book was write the book. So I wasn't juggling loads of things. I was just actually, I was just writing the book. I was doing 1 day of therapy with clients, and then I had 4 other days to write the book. Now I only had 2 months to write it in because I had signed a deal. You know, I had a deadline for writing the book, and I was so sick for most of that I had 8 weeks to write the book in. But actually,
it was all in your head anyway.
It was all in my head.
You do all day, every day. Yeah.
So I was fortunate. But actually, writing it was like quite enjoyable because I wasn't juggling all of the things I would have been if I hadn't have fallen pregnant and been really, really sick.
And you went completely offline, didn't you?
Yeah, I kind of just dropped the ball on that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And I think people need to understand that that's okay. And you can come back then when you feel more regulated, like what you say.
Yeah. So then actually I handed in the book in June. My baby was due at the start of September. And I just kind of allowed myself to not really do that much for July and August. For August, myself and the girls and Paul went on a gorgeous holiday to County Clare, where we just like went to the beach every day and the girls surfed. Like they're 7 and 4, so I say surfed in inverted commas. We went for walks and we, watched movies with popcorn at nighttime, like just very slow, like rented a really cheap Airbnb, like just very wholesome, very slow. But I didn't put the pressure on myself to do Instagram at that time because I just wanted to like prepare for having a baby. I was obviously heavily pregnant at that stage. I was feeling physically very big and sore, but meditating every day, like living a very slow life, connected life, felt really connected to the girls. So it's like, it was a beautiful month. Went like swimming in the sea every day, my massive bump.
That sounds brilliant.
Yeah, it was gorgeous.
But now that you're back into the swing of things, have you found that you're living life more of a fast pace now? And are you able to cope with that? Or do you want to go back to the slowness?
Yeah, I said to Paul recently, so if I just didn't work anymore, I wonder would that be feasible for us? He was like, excuse me? No, I'm only joking. I don't think I could ever be the type of person who didn't work, but I'm like, maybe I could just do a half week now.
Yeah.
And actually mother my children. And I don't say that with any judgment because I was the mother that was doing the emails, from 6 to 8 when I would have, looking back, felt very disconnected to my girls and thought this isn't the mum that I want to be. I want to be there in the evenings for them where they can talk about their day to me and we can sit and have dinner together. So yes, now I'm at the point where I'm really exploring, well, how much do I want to work and how much do I want to be with my kids and how might I be able to find that balance where I'm still earning money. Maybe it's about working smarter, and not working as many hours, but not being on my phone not scrolling on my phone for 4 of the hours when I'm trying to work.
I think that's being really honest as well, though, because I suppose maybe we do think that we are so busy and there just is no time in the day.
Yeah.
But in actual fact, if we were to look at our phone use and you pick it up and you say, oh, I've spent 5 hours on my phone today doing nothing.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, when I don't work as hard, there's sacrifices. It's not like I still get to have all of the things that I would have if I were earning more money. But I don't. But it's a choice, I guess, isn't it? It's like what, for me at the moment, at the stage I'm at in my life, I want to feel connected to my children. And I know what it's like to not feel connected to them when they're very little. And I'm really realizing now that they're only little for such a short period. They won't need me as much maybe in a couple of years. So I was very fortunate in that had the baby at the start of September and up until Christmas was just a maternity leave. Wasn't really juggling anything. Then January I had to start kind of preparing for the book coming out. Then February the book came out and I was doing 101 interviews. I was very, very lucky to be in that position and to have lots of interviews to do, but it's busy. And I was juggling that with, a 5-month-old baby that I was breastfeeding. So it was busy. But I was very careful to protect time for myself and to protect time for my connection with the baby and like to be able to actually build up my feeding supply as well on those days off where we could just sit on the couch and she could like snuggle in and, to be available to her and to be available to myself. So I kept time and I didn't go back to like seeing clients in that time. I made a very conscious decision. This is how I'm going to survive this really busy period. I'm going to take time for myself and I'm not going to juggle lots of different things. I'm just going to focus on the book for this month. And my mom was there. So without her, like we wouldn't have survived it. She was there. Like I'd come home and there'd be a wash hanging out that she had done. Or
Mom's the best.
She'd have dinner ready. So
oh my goodness,
like very, very, very lucky to have her. So yes, now I'm at that point where I'm like, so what's next? Do I go back to doing 3 days of therapy a week and then other things on the side? Do I go back? And I'm not sure actually. I don't have an answer yet. And I'd say Paul is like, it's time to decide, Clodagh.
Yeah. And the people that you see, you were saying that you see mainly females now, you've one man. Yeah. They're busy, they're tired, they're exhausted.
Yeah.
Probably anxious as a result of all of those things. So do you tell them to slow down?
Yeah.
And do they say, but Clodagh, I could have fucking told myself that. I'm paying you to tell me to sort my life out. and how to do it?
So I think what it is, it's about helping people connect with what life is like for them at the moment. And if it's not how they want it to feel, what can change and what can give. So that might be learning techniques to lower your anxiety. It might be looking back at your life and understanding perhaps why anxiety has been such a big part of your life and healing some of those wounds within yourself so that these traumatic experiences no longer have this massive hold on you and life can feel easier then. Might be a combination of the two, untangling those wounds, working on those wounds while also using those anxiety techniques like CBT techniques to help you in the moment when the anxiety feels really heightened. It might be slowing down so your nervous system feels more regulated, like I've just been describing. And it also might be helping people grow that awareness that I did, back late 2023, where I was like, I'm so busy and this is just, I'm not happy. I'm disconnected and I don't want my life to continue like this anymore. So like that question I asked you, but Laura, if you had to drop a ball, is there something that you could drop? And what would be your readiness to actually let that go? So it's like unpacking, untangling, teasing out these questions. So I've had lots of clients that we've worked on this with. And one, I actually mentioned her in my book. I'm trying to remember the pseudonym I gave her. I think it was Alice.
What's her name?
Yeah.
What's her name, Clodagh, and her address?
Note to anyone that's giving pseudonyms to people in books. Remember, because all that's in my mind now is her actual name. I think it was Alice. She was running this like massively successful business that she had built from the ground up. She was winning awards. It was, in her industry, she was really well known. And I promise to all of the listeners that's not Laura Dowling that I'm speaking about right now. But it was like meeting with her and for her saying, I just feel so dysregulated. I've no life. Like I literally have no interest or hobbies or anything because I'm just so consumed by work. I wouldn't even know where to begin if I started to create time for myself. What would I do with it? My back is really sore all the time. I've gut issues. My stomach feels really there
are so many people that feel like this and they are living this life.
Yeah.
And they're not necessarily running $1 million business or something like that.
Yeah.
This is just their life as it is. So we are going to help so many people with whatever you're going to say now. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah. It
doesn't have to be the most successful people in the room that feel like this.
It can be a stay-at-home mom that has 2 children at home and the washing basket is always
never empty.
Yes.
Because that is the hardest bloody job, I'll tell you now.
Or you're like trying to get the Weetabix off the table. Weetabix dries so hard. Or you're having fights with your husband because you're on your phone too much or, whatever it is.
Yeah. Or he's on his phone too much.
Yeah.
Do they ever complain to you about their husbands going to the toilet for hours? And we know they're not in there doing anything but on the phone scrolling.
What really winds me up?
Loads that in the confessions on a Sunday. My husband goes to the bathroom at 11 o'clock and only comes out at 1. Claims he's constipated. It isn't his arse. Excuse the pun.
My 6-month-old's bedroom is beside one of the bathrooms in our house. And every so often I'll hear the reels or the...
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, if he's on the toilet beside that child's room and wakes that child up from her nap, I will strangle him.
Oh.
Go to the other bathroom. Where were we? Yes.
We're talking about Alice.
Alice, yes. So she said to me, what do I do? And she was like, it was at that point exactly where I was at the end of 23 where she was like, I just can't live like this anymore. Like, this is not what I thought life would look like. And we started to unpack why she was working so incredibly hard and why she, literally, if an email came through at 11 o'clock, she had to read the email. And it linked back to this fear that she would let her parents down. I have to work really, really hard because if I don't, I'll let my parents down. She felt she had this perceived sense that she had let her parents down when she wasn't offered a particular college course. She was offered, I think, a course in a different college, different university that maybe wasn't as prestigious or something. I can't even remember the details, but it felt really significant for her. And she didn't want to see that look on her parents' face again, which actually is so heartbreaking, isn't it?
Goodness, that you'd carry that well into your adulthood, isn't it?
So we started to unpack that a little bit. And then for her to kind of, you know, think, well, maybe I can do something differently here. Maybe my life doesn't have to feel this way. I'm thinking of another client as well, who also is in the book. Nikki was her pseudonym in the book, but she had 3 daughters, and she worked part-time and then, was full-time taxi to her daughters and was available to them, after school every day whenever there was a home ec project that needed tending to, or an art project or whatever.
She did the project
at like 11 o'clock at night time. When it was literally last minute, or there was holes in the clothes or whatever. So for her, it was like she was so overwhelmed between her part-time job, but then also being so available to her daughters. So as well, for her, it was like, what can you start to do differently? And with Nikki, it was, can you take 1 hour a week for yourself? Like, what would you like to do in that 1 hour for yourself? And she said yoga, which I'm sure you're like, yes, I would. If I had 1 hour for myself, I would love to do yoga as well, because we know you love yoga. But it was like, but I can't give myself that hour a week, because if I were to take that hour a week, who would look after the girls? I was like, your husband? Would that be possible? She's like, he just wouldn't do it right. He wouldn't be able to do the home ec project, or he wouldn't be able to. So then it was like, well, okay, what about if we put a bit of a boundary in place that you could be 100% available to the girls until 8 o'clock on a Tuesday, where you're going to do your yoga class. And then you had that firm boundary that from 8 to 9, the home ec projects had to be paused, or whatever it was. Could that be a possibility? And it really took a long time for her to say, okay, I'll try it. And just,
wow.
And it was really hard for her.
I wouldn't have any problem handing over the home ec projects to Mr. Fabulous to do with the boys, but everyone's different, isn't it? But why was she like that? Why did she feel that she had to be so available to her children? Did you unpack some childhood trauma there where her mother wasn't available to her?
So that's where I went with that. I was like,
I'm a psychologist.
Yes.
I'm now a psychologist, an armchair psychologist.
Yeah.
See, I could do your job now.
You could.
Who needs a master's and a PhD?
Says the highly educated woman herself. So I said to her, actually, tell me about your mom's relationship with herself. Where did your mom take time for herself when you were growing up? And in her family, her mom was a single mom and juggling a couple of children, 4 or 5, I can't remember. It doesn't matter.
Oh my goodness.
But she did everything for them. And she was 2 parents all in one, and worked 2 jobs and did the home ec projects and all of the things. And, I'm sure absolutely exhausted herself in that process, and sounded like an absolutely incredible woman that held the fort together when she had to. But, with Nikki, I was thinking, well, maybe we can take 1 hour for yourself a week. But by the end of us working together, she had gone to Italy on a week's retreat by herself.
Wow.
She had taken up a course where she learned, she educated herself. And she had done a couple of nights away with friends and things, and shock horror, the girls survived.
Probably did better for it as well, because sometimes it's independence that children need too.
Yeah.
I'm all for sending them in without the project being done and them getting their wrist slapped in school, and then them learning. Do you know that kind of way? But
and her husband stepped in as well.
Yeah, of course he did.
Yeah. And then for going back to Alice, by the time we had stopped working together, she had taken a 3-month sabbatical from her business and set it up that things just kept she hired a manager, and she hired other people that her business was well able to afford. And she just set it up for herself that she was able to take 3 months off. And initially she was like, on my 3 months, I'm going to do this and this and this. And I was like, oh, I don't know about this. Don't take on too much. This is about rest and finding yourself again. And actually, after the 3 months, we had a session, and she came back to me and she said, I didn't do anything. The extent of it was I went for walks on the beach, and it was glorious. And I'm not sitting here saying, okay, everyone needs to take 3 months off work because that's
'Cause
not
some people
realistic.
can't,
No.
yeah.
But it's about where can you do something differently? And it might be, that could be from 9 to 10, you watch TV and you put your phone away and you just allow yourself to relax in the evenings. You know, is there anything that can't wait on your phone from 9 to 10 p.m? Can you actually just sit down or go for a walk or sit and have a cup of tea? One of my friends, when she gets the kids out the door in the mornings, gets back into bed with a cup of tea. And that's her time to just kind of like decompress and set herself up for the day. And it's her favourite part of the day. So what little even pockets of things can you do for yourself? Or are there balls that you can drop? You know, when you think about time management, a lot of the time you hear the 4Ds. So it's like what needs to be done. What can you delete? What can you delegate? And what can you delay? I was like, what's the fourth one?
Jeez, I've never heard that. Now, let me think.
Yeah.
Delete, delegate, delay.
And do.
And do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Yeah.
Do things come to mind?
Yes. 100 things come to mind.
Yeah. And if you were to sit down with a piece of paper and write out your 4Ds and, you know, get all of those things that are swarming around your head down in the paper in the 4 categories, how do you think that would feel?
It'd probably feel great because it's not swimming around in my head.
Yeah. And then with the delay stuff, you could put them in your diary for July, for example. So you're not going to forget them. They're there, but you just don't need to worry about them till July. Just using, you know, this arbitrary time period, whatever.
Goodness, would you just come and live with me and just sort my life out for me?
And then, you know, what can you delegate to Mr. Fabulous or to the boys?
Yeah. I'm
the dishwasher.
I'm good at delegating to them. Oh, they know how to empty a dishwasher.
Yeah.
And clean the toilets and do everything. But again, it's like nagging, isn't it? Sometimes with the children. And but what I do find works really well with them, if you just take the phones off them and say, you are not getting these back until what I've asked you is done.
Yeah.
It's done fairly quickly then.
I try to get my daughter to take, like, this is the extent of it. Try to get her to take her lunchbox out of her bag when she comes home from school and put the contents, you know, like the wrappers in the bin. You would swear that I was asking her to like clean the whole house before she got fed.
I know.
Mommy, this is so much work and I'm so tired.
I know, it's funny, but I say that to women all the time as well. Women are just stuck in this vicious cycle of doing everything for everybody and very little for themselves.
Yeah.
And they really need to delegate in their own home. Like, you know, I do online training for the business, and I always say to people, I said, there's no point if someone comes in for a menopause consultation to you.
Yeah.
No amount of Meno and Peri or HRT or whatever they want to take is going to help them if they are absolutely knackered and exhausted from everything they're doing all day. I said, so the first thing you say to them is tell them to tell their partner, there's nothing sexier than a clean kitchen, or nothing turns me on more than you bending over and emptying that dishwasher and it's done straight away. You know, you have to be able to work with the people that you're living with as well.
Yeah. I don't know for your pod, is it mainly women listeners or do you have a mix of men and women?
I'd say it's mainly women.
I'm thinking of my husband. So Paul, like he feels very overwhelmed as well. So it's not just a female thing. You know, sometimes we can get caught in this narrative that women do everything. But say for Paul, he does a lot with our girls. He's very hands-on. He has a job, like a job where he has a lot of work to do. So for him as well, it's the same idea.
Yeah, we do get caught in the whole thing where it's only women, but of course men feel overwhelmed.
Yeah.
But I think that sometimes can men focus on one thing more than women can? You know, the way they say women are they multitask, and men, you know, they tend to be able to focus on the singular task. But obviously if men have children, they're multitasking all the time. So it's probably an unfair statement.
Yeah. And then it depends on the season of life as well. So I know for us at the moment, when like I will feed the baby, like breastfeed the baby in the morning, so he will navigate the other two, like get them ready for school or, you know, whatever. So it's very hands-on for him at certain points as well. Now I have a little baby who's breastfeeding, so he can't do that. But, you know, men carry a lot of responsibilities too. So it's not just the women.
Of
And men
course,
can
yeah.
feel very burnt out. And for him as well, so often I'm trying to encourage him, like, what can you do for yourself? Like every Tuesday night, like go play football or go golfing or, you know, whatever. But so it can be hard for them as well.
It is. And actually, that is so interesting, because I think it's been wonderful, the menopause conversation and the female conversation that's gone on around women's health, and because it was so forgotten about for so long, or just not talked about.
Yeah.
But we've spoken about the male midlife crisis in a kind of a jokey manner before, like, oh, look, they go and buy their Lycra and they go cycling up mountains and expensive bikes, and, you know, they're a bit moody and grumpy and stuff like that. But it's very real for them. They actually, it's not as profound as women, but they lose a percentage of their testosterone every year.
Yeah.
You know, roughly from their 40s onwards. And
Okay.
and it does affect them, and it does make them feel less than, and it does affect their outlook in life. And I was actually talking to a male doctor who deals with male health, and he was saying they describe it sometimes as like the colour's gone out of the television for them.
Yeah.
And I suppose it's a very different life to when they were in their 20s, having the crack, to, you know, navigating small children. And what's expected of men nowadays is very different than, I suppose, what was expected of their fathers, because men are expected to be there for their wives and their children in a different way than they were years and years ago, I suppose. So yeah, it is. We need to mind our men too.
And maybe they have this like idea of being the provider, you know, and having to work incredibly hard to provide. But also, I know sometimes Paul talks about, like, already we've little kids, but, you know, trying to set them up for like life in later years. So he thinks about a lot of things that aren't on my radar. Like, I don't think as far ahead as him.
You're like, I just want to get through tomorrow, Paul.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's about what can you put down? What can you delay or delete? Like, and often it can be comparison as well, can't it? Like, we feel like we need to keep up with our friends or with other people, with holidays or with whatever. Like
business or success or whatever that might look like.
Clothes, whatever it is. So I always think it's really helpful to go back to what your values are and what's important to you, and to spend some time actually figuring that out, because that can be hard. Like, I didn't really know until the end of 2023 what was really important to me. And connection with the people in my life was really important. Peace of mind was really important to me, which probably won't come as a surprise given that I have shared so much about the anxiety that I've experienced in life. So, like, feeling just at peace within myself was really important to me. Whereas it wasn't, you know, maybe the fancy holidays that were the thing. So, you know, if I wanted to go on 5 fancy holidays a year, I could work really, really hard and go on the fancy holidays. But actually, I would burn myself out aiming for that. It was actually, like I said, that holiday in Clare in the really cheap Airbnb on the beach, eating sandwiches that had sand in them. That was gorgeous. Now, we were lucky we got good weather. It rained a couple of days. But it's funny, actually, one of the days...
just being able to switch off, though, is the important part.
Yeah.
Put everything down and spend time in the moment.
Yeah.
Rather than worrying and thinking about next week, next month.
Yeah. And on that little Airbnb holiday, we ate out a good bit, but also when we didn't eat out and we ate in the house, it was like pizza and stuff, you know, that we throw in the oven. It wasn't that I wasn't thinking this is a time for really healthy, nutritious meals. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I know.
There isn't that pressure.
Yeah, no, it is.
Or I wasn't washing the bed sheets. Like, you know, when I left, someone else washed the bed sheets. You know, I wasn't looking at the hamper. That was kind of next week's problem. The dirty clothes were just going in the suitcase. So it is that kind of escape as well.
It is, absolutely. So anxiety, if people are living with anxiety, you know, and the questions that are coming in about it is, there's so many of them, I can't even, you know, how do people start to deal with their anxiety on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah.
And are there steps? Oh, are there steps? That's your book's name.
The third step of my book is Calm the Chaos of Your Mind. Something along those lines. I actually can't remember. But it's about anxiety. And like I just said earlier, was that I had to reflect. At end of 2023, I'm really disconnected, feeling really low, feeling quite anxious. I need to figure out what's going on for me. So awareness is really important. So I think that can be a really powerful part of therapy, where you're sitting with somebody and they help you to start figuring out what is working, what's not working, why you're feeling this way.
Is anxiety always because you experience a traumatic event, or can it be something that's just in you?
There's lots of different factors that can contribute to anxiety.
Okay.
So we often talk about the biopsychosocial model of anxiety.
Okay.
So biological. So it can lead to maybe genetic predispositions. It can lead to brain chemistry. You know, we're talking about these things that are factors that can contribute to anxiety. So is it something that you inherited in a way? Is it something that your brain chemistry is kind of at a place where your cortisol levels maybe are really high, or your adrenaline is really high, or what's going on in your brain that you can maybe look at to see if it's contributing to the anxiety at this point in your life. Psychological factors. So things that have happened that maybe have been very challenging for you in life. So it could be trauma. It could be grief. It could be that you are just living a really disconnected, really detached life at the moment. So what are these things that are there psychologically that maybe are contributing to the anxiety that you're feeling? And social. So I know, for example, with depression, if you're feeling really, really, really isolated, that can hugely impact your mood. So with anxiety too, it's like, in my life, socially, what's happening that maybe is causing anxiety to be present in my life? So am I feeling really overwhelmed, and am I living a really busy life? Am I feeling really disconnected? Is there stuff going on even maybe with my partner where there's stress and conflict? Anxiety and stress, we experience them in a very similar way in our body. So when we think of anxiety and we think of symptoms that can be present in our body, we often think of that kind of churning in our stomach, nausea in our stomach. We think of our mind racing, lots and lots of different thoughts. We can think of tension in our body, tense shoulders, tense fists, tense jaw.
Clenching your jaw.
Clenching your jaw. That one that resonates for you. Yeah.
I don't realise it until I'll be driving the car and I'm like, Jesus, why is my teeth stuck together?
Yeah.
And it's literally because you're clenching your jaw.
Yeah.
Trying to race from one place to the next, because there's 90 minutes in an hour in my head when there's actually only 60 minutes. So I'm always late.
Yeah. And even that, like, I did an MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction course a couple of years ago. And it was only through that I really recognized the impact always being late was having on my body. So up until that point, when I would be rushing and racing from one thing to the next, I would be fighting that fire in my body of lateness. It's like coming here this morning or today, I was 6 minutes late to meet you. Previously,
I counted every single minute. And every minute that went by, I was like, that bitch.
I knew it. So previously, I would have felt very, very hot and bothered about that.
Okay.
I would have thought, will I ring her? Will I let her know I'm going to be 5 minutes late? And in that like fast paced,
yeah.
Will I text her? No, I'm driving. I can't text her. What will she think of me? Like that really heightened, fast. Will she think that I'm disrespecting her time? Will we have enough time to do the thing? Am I disappointing her? Am I letting her down? I remember one time.
Jesus, there's an awful lot of thoughts going on in that head of yours.
Yeah. But that's what I mean. So the
I'm
impact.
kind of the same though, if I was to admit it.
Yeah.
So, but I can't help myself as well sometimes, as in being late.
Yes.
But I know I can.
But you can change your relationship to yourself in the lateness.
Okay.
And that's what changed for me. So I remember really clearly, I was walking to the cinema with my children. So one of them was in a buggy, one of them was on a scooter. They were quite little at the time. My daughter's helmet kept falling off her head. It's like the chin strap was too loose or something.
Yeah.
And she kept stumbling off the scooter. We were late to the cinema. We were in walking distance, but it was like a 25-minute walk to the cinema. So we kept stopping and starting with the helmet and the scooter. And then the other child in the buggy was crying. I think she was hungry or something. And I was thinking, I'm not going to stop and get out the food because we're rushing. So she was crying. I was giving out to the other girl with my other daughter because of the helmet and the scooter. Really heightened, really like, come on, let's go. Grabbing, the 4-year-old on the scooter.
Yeah.
We're late. And really in a tizzy because we were late going to the cinema to a kid's movie. Like it
that
was.
You're supposed to go and enjoy.
Yeah, and it was not life or death.
Yeah.
Like the children, my girls wouldn't have even probably recognised that we were late walking in.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I was going with you, and if I was going with you and I'd be like, oh no, I've made Laura miss the start of the movie.
Yeah.
That would be a different experience. Well, it could be a different experience, but this was 2 little children that couldn't care less. They probably wouldn't have sat through the whole movie anyway. It didn't matter. But I was really irritable with them, dragging them into the cinema. And it was at that time that I was doing that 8-week mindfulness course. And I realized in the course, the following couple of days later, oh God, I did not need to be that stressed. But it was just, that was how I lived in my lateness.
Yeah.
Like the fighting a fire. If I don't get there, the house is going to burn down.
You can even relate that though to getting your kids to training on time or getting them to a match on time too.
Or to school in the morning.
School, yeah. But, I've had that where it's like, they're literally, it's like, where's your fucking hurl and helmet? We're going to be late. But it's like, but now I have actually been better, but mine are a bit older now. I just go, if you're late, you're late. It's not my problem.
Yeah.
Or, just skip it.
Yeah.
Do I really need the stress of trying to figure out lifts to all the way over across town or all the way to Kildare for a match? Like, let's just not go.
Yeah.
My head is so tired thinking of everything all the time.
And sometimes if we're late for school in the morning, other parents are late too. Like I'll see them and I'll be like, it's okay.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things.
This is going out in the reel now and all the teachers are going to go, you bitch.
I'm sorry. I really value my...
Everyone, you can be late for school, not a bother.
And now it would be different if my daughter was getting in trouble for it. If she was coming home and saying, my teacher's giving it to me.
We know what you're saying. We do know what you're saying. You're saying it obviously we need to be in school on time, but it's not life or death.
I'm sorry to the education system. No, so what I'm saying is you're going to be late sometimes. I'm late a lot and I do respect people's time. And I try not to be late, but these things happen. Sometimes I'm late. And it is a responsibility that I am aware of. But if we go back to just how you look after yourself in that. So driving to you today, I was 6 minutes late and I knew I was going to be late from when I left my house. But I thought to myself, it's okay. Laura will survive the 5 minutes that I'm late.
Yeah.
She will not be knocked down in that period. She'll likely just be sitting on a couch, maybe catching her breath after having a busy morning.
I was delighted. I love it when guests are late because I get to just unwind a bit before them.
Yeah. And I was thinking, even if she is one of these people that hates when people are late, because there will be people listening and I'll be riling them up now and they'll be like, I hate people like Clodagh because I'm on time and then people like Clodagh come along and they do disrespect my time. So for those people, I'm very sorry. But the thing is, if I were to have really pissed you off on that, I would survive that. Like if you were like, oh, I don't want to talk to her ever again. I'm not inviting her to anything ever again. I will survive that. And if you want to cut me out of your life for being 5 minutes late, that's okay. Like I will be able to live with myself for that.
Okay.
I wouldn't be able to live with myself for, doing something really hurtful to you.
Yeah.
But I will survive if you cut me off for being 5 minutes late.
So I suppose it's about seeing what are the big things and what are the little things and what are the things we should be worrying about.
Yeah.
I definitely want to talk to you about CBT.
Yeah.
But then I also want to talk to you about being a highly sensitive person too.
Yeah.
So which will we do first? Because CBT is kind of related to the anxiety and the steps. We've talked about anxiety and how we can try and remove it from our lives.
Yeah.
And you were suggesting like we need to look at our lives and see what can we take out of our lives, what's causing the anxiety. And I understand that. But is CBT something that people can do by themselves or do they need to be taught it?
So CBT is brilliant. It really does what it says on the tin.
I'm waiting for the but.
When it comes to anxiety, I know for me, and for many of my clients, there's often a reason that we experience anxiety. So CBT will help us manage the anxiety, but it's not going to get to the root cause.
So it helps us manage it in the moment.
It helps us, if we're one of these people that gets really, really anxious when we're late, it will give us strategies in the moment when we're late to feel better.
So give me an example of that.
A strategy is to reassure yourself in the moment. So I was doing that this morning, or this afternoon. It will be fine.
Okay.
It's not life or death. I was reassuring myself, like looking after myself in that. You know, if someone rings you and says, we need to talk, we'll talk tomorrow at 9 a.m.
I hate that.
Hate
Do you know that I left my full-time position in Lloyd's 2.5 years ago, and I still get like, and I'm friends with some of the pharmacists in there, and whenever I get a missed call from one of them, I still go, could I be in trouble? That was one thing throughout my life. If I got a call from, say, a manager or the superintendent pharmacist, I automatically thought I was in the wrong, or I'd done something wrong.
Yeah.
And I never had, really. Well, maybe once or twice, but like, isn't that strange? And then I'm like a 45-year-old woman.
Yeah.
And I still experience that, oh my goodness, why would they call, like, there's something going wrong?
Yeah. There would be CBT strategies to help you in that moment if you have to wait till 9 a.m. tomorrow and you're highly anxious about what that conversation is going to be about. So there'd be things that you can learn in CBT to just help you manage that waiting period. So
just to reassure yourself,
reassuring
it's going to
yourself,
be okay.
Rationalizing, you know, what is the likelihood that actually something terrible is going to happen in that meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m.? Or is it actually probably going to be fine? You know, if somebody doesn't text you back, what are the chances that they've crashed and, you know, they're unresponsive? I don't know. Do you catastrophize? I do. I catastrophize.
No, but I do worry when maybe sometimes it's more those calls out of the blue and I go, oh my God, this is something to do with me and I've done something terribly wrong.
So how you can look after yourself in that moment, CBT is really helpful for that.
Okay.
I have this thing where I always catastrophize when my baby sleeps longer than she usually does.
So there's a lot of moments that relate to that, wouldn't
I really, and I can even feel it now in my body, like going in and opening the door and almost holding my breath until I see her move.
Yeah.
So I have to look after myself with that.
Yeah.
It's that I have this disposition to like kind of catastrophize, and then I have to like look after myself and manage that. So CBT can really help with that. But the question is, well, Clodagh, why do you catastrophize? So I do have a disposition, but also I have a background, my history. The CBT can help you manage those things in the moment, but I believe that it can be incredibly helpful to go back and to untangle some of those things that have happened in your past so that they don't have as tight a hold on you anymore, so that you can learn to just live a more peaceful life and untangle those things, and for them not to just feel as terrifying all the time, or for you not to be carrying so much kind of trauma or kind of traumatic energy. Or
does that require therapy to go back into that?
So that in therapy, that can be incredibly helpful. So for me, I definitely have always feared rejection and abandonment. And I'll give you like a real life example that I actually told Paul recently, but I've never talked about this with anyone else before. Even with some of my closest friendships, sometimes I can get that fear of abandonment and rejection, like really intensely. So one of my friends was on holidays and I wasn't expecting to hear from her on the holiday. It was grand. I didn't hear from her for like a week after she came home. And then I contacted her and I still didn't hear from her. And I had that, what's after happening? Something's after happening in our relationship. Of course it hadn't. And I do this myself when I go on holidays. You know, you get back to reality, you go back to getting the kids out the door in the morning, to doing the school lunches, you get back into work, like life is busy, you know, you have that kind of settling back in period. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, now I can kind of, you know, reach out to my friends. And but recently I had that, like something's after happening in our relationship, and I felt scared in our relationship. And it was a familiar experience for me that like was stored within me because I've had previous experiences of being abandoned. So it's like that inner child within me was scared that I was going to experience that pain again. So in the past, that would have been really, really crippling for me. And I would have felt extreme anxiety around that. But when that was happening this time recently, I was able to look at it rationally and soothe myself in it. She's busy. She's back to real life. I do this myself. When I'm away, I don't look at my phone. I come back. It takes me a while to get back into the swing of things. And then I'll contact my friends. She's in that period right now. She's not cross at you. She doesn't hate you. You haven't done anything to piss her off. And for some people listening, they'll be like, oh, Jesus, like that was extreme. But other people will be like, I actually quite understand that feeling.
I think some people will understand that.
Yeah. And
is that to do with being a highly sensitive person though?
So for me, I would probably both. Like the abandonment wound that I've experienced, but also that I'm a very highly sensitive person.
Okay. And that sounds a little bit funny, saying I'm a highly sensitive person.
Yeah.
And the first time I heard it, I thought, God, what is that? That's a funny thing to say about yourself.
Yeah.
But can you explain what it means and the impact that it can have on someone?
Yeah.
Because I suspect a lot of people have this.
Yeah. So I know I'm mentioning Paul a lot in this pod, but it's actually really relevant. We experience life differently, myself and Paul. We were at the St. Patrick's Day parade recently. And, float after float was going by, and there was a community of Ukrainian people in the parade holding up this big, beautiful painted banner, and it said, "Thank you, Ireland."
Oh.
And I started to cry.
Yeah.
And Paul kind of did a double take and looked at me. And I was like, it's just so, and I was like really crying.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just so incredibly sad. Like, can you imagine if we had to leave our country because a war broke out, and then we felt compelled to thank the country that like we were able to go and live in? Like, that's just so heartbreaking that that's happening in real life. And he just kind of gave me a bit of a squeeze and a hug because he knows what I'm like. But like he never would cry at something like that. He's a very caring, kind person, but he just wouldn't feel that intenseness in the moment that I did. Or, like watching a movie, I could start bawling. And he just looked at me being like, are you right there?
Well, do you know what? I was at the rugby match in Rome there recently, the Six Nations, and Ireland were playing. Now, we didn't win. But when they were doing their little walk around the pitch afterwards, I was really emotional and like really teary-eyed because all the crowd were cheering for them, and it just felt really emotional. And then the next day, the Rome Marathon was on, and all the runners were running, and the people that were cheering them on were like, yeah, give them those encouragement. And I felt really overwhelmed then, like that whole crowd feeling where we're supporting each other.
Yeah.
So, but I wouldn't call myself a highly sensitive person at all.
Yeah.
But I think that sometimes that sense of community can really build up emotion inside us, can't it?
Yeah, yeah. And it's like a spectrum. There's a spectrum with everything. So I might feel things at an 8, whereas you might feel things at like a 5. And noise really bothers me. Like, when the TV's too loud, that really bothers me. I'm always like, turn down the TV. Whereas Paul wouldn't even bother him. Or like, I remember, this is probably a mum thing too. I went to my daughter when she's about 5, did a ballet show on like a big stage in a theatre, sobbing my way through it.
That's a mom thing though, isn't it?
But I was looking around at the other moms.
Oh, they weren't.
They weren't.
They're like, who's that sato over there?
What's wrong with your one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've already said about your friend, you worrying about your friend coming back from holidays and not talking to you. Are you sensitive? Like, could I look at you funny now and you'd be like, oh, Jesus, what does that mean?
Maybe not now, because I'm at a place where I am so much more content within myself. And if you looked at me a bit funny, probably now I'd be like, I wonder what that was about. And I wouldn't personalize it maybe as much, but definitely a few years ago. Yeah.
Okay.
Or if we left today and if I said, oh, it was so lovely spending time with you, like, let's go for coffee or something. And then maybe in the response part of that, the producer came in and said something and you kind of didn't hear me, didn't acknowledge it. In the past, I would have really felt that. And I would have been like, And I would have felt very vulnerable in that, like reaching out and taking that risk of saying, let's be friends. And then if I hadn't received anything back from you, I would have felt that really deeply.
Okay.
But now I've learned that often it's not about us. And even if it is, even if you're like, nah, no interest in meeting her for coffee, she's not my type of person, that's okay.
Yeah.
Like I'm strong enough in myself to like, that's okay. But before I would have felt that very deeply. And now that links a lot to self-worth as well. So,
and have you done a lot of work on self-worth recently, or is it just in the last year when you've decided to take life more slowly that you've learned all this?
No, I think becoming a mother really changed things for me with my self-worth. So when I was younger, and after being given up for adoption, I really struggled with my sense of worth. Like, am I of value? How can I be of value? People are just going to leave me, abandon me. I have nothing to offer. And then when my daughter was born, my first daughter, and I just could see how precious she was and how much light and love and joy she brought to the world without doing anything, just arriving. You know, that moment where there's this squishy new little baby. And I know you've experienced it recently with your niece.
Oh my goodness, there's nothing like the love. I was driving into the Coombe hospital when my sister had, had announced that she'd had the baby.
Yeah.
She video WhatsApp me. I was bawling, crying. Just that it is the love of a new baby brings to everyone in the family is unreal, isn't it?
And the baby doesn't do anything.
No,
the baby just arrives.
They don't have to. It's amazing. Yeah,
exactly. And that was really powerful for me. You know, what you just said there, they don't have to. They don't have to do anything. And they are loved and adored and precious and perfect, whatever way they arrive into the world.
Mm.
Having my daughter helped me to realise that and to recognise that that was my story too. So that really changed things for me in terms of my self-worth.
When you say that was your story too, you arriving into the world was an amazing thing. And okay.
Yeah.
I hear you now.
Yeah. And there was nothing wrong with me, so I think I always carried that sense of, well, if I was given away, I personalized it.
Okay.
And then having my daughter, I was like, of course, there was nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
I was perfect and precious too, just as she was and is. So that really significantly impacted me in a really positive way. And it's sad. I feel sadness thinking back to the younger version of me that didn't know that. And that was I had my first daughter when I was 30. I had just turned 30. So for 30 years, I didn't know that.
And do you think that if you hadn't been made aware that you were adopted from a young age and you were only told maybe older in life, maybe you would have felt something, but you wouldn't have known it was adoption? Do you think it would have been easier for you? Because you wouldn't have had that, I was... Because you keep going back to the fact that you said you were given away, you were put up for adoption, you were abandoned.
Yeah.
Do you think that you may have known there was something, because you say that the body feels it regardless of whether you were 2 weeks old, you didn't know in foster care whether you were looked after the way you should have been.
Yeah.
So do you think that if you hadn't been told from a young age, because they do say you should just inform your child, it's really important that they know that it's not just something out of the blue when they're older.
Yeah.
But do you think that maybe if you hadn't been told, that it would have had less of an impact on you growing up?
I think it's a really good question. And what I would hypothesize is that, such a psychology word, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Is that I would always have felt that anxiety and just maybe have grown up as a very anxious child. When I was going from Montessori into primary school, my Montessori teacher said to my mom, maybe you should keep her back a year. She's very, she wondered if I could do with an extra year to just maybe become a little bit more independent, or so from really early age, I was looking around me in the world and assessing who was safe and what was safe. And so that was when I was 3.
Yeah. Wow.
I think I probably just always would have experienced life as scary in a way. Maybe not with and look, when I was up until I was maybe 18, I don't know if I consciously was able to recognize why life felt that way.
Mm.
You know, I made sense of it later in life. Yeah.
That how we're all so different, isn't it? How our brains all
Yeah.
work so differently.
Yeah.
You'd know that, of course. Being a psychologist, I'm sure you
Yeah.
see and hear all kinds of things.
Even within my children, like my 7-year-old and my 4-year-old, so different.
You analysing then going,
Not analysing them, but like they're so different and always have been, you know? And like no one ever grows up with the same parents. Like I am not the same mom to them. You know, I'm a different mom to them. No one has the same parents, even if they're brought up in the same family with the same parents. We react and treat them differently.
Yeah.
But you know, they've had the same upbringing, like with myself and Paul, like everything. They've always had the same things, but they're so different, and they've come out of the
It is amazing
moon.
how different your children. Look, mine are like absolute chalk and cheese. I was telling you about one of my lads. He'd let you know that there was a tooth coming up. You know, a month before it was coming up, you would know. He used to torture me and his dad.
Yeah.
With his teeth coming up, and then the other fella, you know, my middle fella, I remember tickling him on the changing mat one day when I was changing his nap, and he burst out laughing, and he had about 6 teeth, and I hadn't even realised they'd all come up.
Yeah.
So, and he's easy going to this day.
Yeah. One of my children is really highly sensitive. The other is she is wild, like wild, but really charming, and like gets away with it. Like she'll smile at you.
Funny, they're devils.
She knows, yeah.
They know how to.
They know, yeah.
They know how to wrap their mum and dad around their fingers as well.
Yep.
Are there any other things that you see in clinic a lot that you'd like to discuss and just reassure people about?
I think our self-worth, like people really struggle with advocating for themselves, taking up space, living the life that they want to. So many people live their life around their perception of what they should and shouldn't do, or how they should or shouldn't be. Even like with their partners, with their parents, even as grown adults.
Yeah.
So many of us put shoulds on our shoulders and can be very unhappy because of that. People come and they feel undeserving to take up space in the therapy room that they're paying for. Like they'll say, I shouldn't be here. Someone more deserving should be here. And it's not a free service. So that's not even part of it. They're paying for it and they feel undeserving to be there. Sad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like that really gets me. Of course they are deserving to be there. You know, we are all deserving of help and support and for life to be easier. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose some people would think that, oh, look, I live a privileged life. I have a job, or I have enough money to feed my children, and I feel guilty for feeling this way, or something like that. Isn't that it? That, look what's going on in the Middle East. I should be grateful for what I have.
Yeah.
Why do I feel this way? You know, I need to just brush myself down.
Yeah.
But you're right. They need to understand that their self-worth is important, and whatever they're experiencing is very real for them.
Exactly. And, you know, we've one life and we spend so much of it unhappy. Like if I could just like wave a magic wand and just help women realize that we are deserving of being happy and living a life where we decide how we want to live our lives based on what makes us happy. Like, I just think that would really change things for people.
So how can people improve their self-worth?
I think, you know, earlier I said it's about changing your relationship with how you look after yourself when you're late, you know, that kind of thing of maybe, you know, I can work on not being late for things, definitely. But I can also change my relationship with how I am in the lateness too. So where I'm more compassionate with myself, or, you know, let myself off the hook or whatever it is. Like I was saying to somebody recently, I really dropped the ball on World Book Day with one of my daughters. So she told us long in advance what character she wanted to be. And I was really busy, so I just didn't, prepare. And then it got to, the kind of panic of a couple of days before. And it's like, oh, fuck. I need to pull this costume out from somewhere. And even when I order, next day delivery, it's not going to be here on time. So long story short, I ordered something, but it was like laughable how bad it was. And so the morning of, she started to cry. She said, but Mummy, I'm not this character. I'm just wearing pajamas. Oh.
And what did you say?
I hugged her and I said, I know you're disappointed, darling. It's okay to be disappointed. I'm really sorry. I was like, but you are, you did. And she's like, no, Mummy. It's like, it's okay, darling. Yeah, I know you're disappointed. I'm really sorry that you're disappointed. So like I validated how she was feeling and hugged her and ended up bringing her and 3 of her friends to Milano's the next day.
I'm sure she was delighted.
But anyway, why I'm sharing this story is I was really busy in that couple of weeks in the run up to that. And I dropped the ball, yes. But I was able to say to myself, it's okay. Like, you dropped the ball, but it's okay. You were doing your best. I was able to just be self-compassionate with myself and not absolutely berate myself and like say, you're the worst mother in the world. She asked for one thing and you couldn't even do it for her. Why are you so selfish? Why do you prioritize yourself? I could have done all that, but I was able to say, it's okay. Like, she survived this, and I bribed her by bringing her to Milano's.
You know the way when you're pregnant with your first child, you're like, I'm never going to give them a doty or processed food or bribe them with McDonald's, and then literally all of that shit goes out the window after 1 year. It's gas, isn't it? I actually saw a funny take on World Book Day. I think it was Motherland, or it was some UK series where they're following all these mothers, and they're funny. It's real life, and this mother turns up to book World Book Day. So fuck Book Day, and I know one of the mothers that has it all down and has the child with the perfect book. The
DIY artist.
Did you forget? She says, no, I didn't fucking forget. Fuck you. And she took off her own clothes and dressed her children in her own clothes, and then walked off with just her bra on. It was funny. But what you're describing is, Jesus. But there's also so much nowadays. I find the whole WhatsApp thing with schools and that overwhelming between, Compass, Aladdin, and then all the various WhatsApp groups for school.
Yeah.
We were sent out to school, and my mother and father did not know what the hell was happening in school from 1 week to the next, from one term to the next. But now it's like, even one of the kids is in transition year, and we're being reminded about the stuff that they have to do in transition year. And I'm basically going, is transition year not about them taking ownership for this themselves? Why am I constantly being informed about this?
Yeah.
I do think there's a bit of infantilizing of them as well these days, with all of the tech that's available and all the apps that are available. I think in a lot of ways we were better off years ago, where my mother didn't know what I was doing from one end of the week to the next.
And they'd send you out for Halloween in like a black sack or a
black sack with 2 holes. No,
not a bother.
Not a bother.
But and also, on World Book Day, I was seeing, like what you've just said, all those mums who had created these artistic, homemade DIY.
Fuck that. No, I never ever was into that.
No, and that's not me. Like, even if I was doing nothing for a whole month before World Book Day, that would never be me.
But fair play to you if that's what you're into. I totally get it if you're into it. But I just know.
It's not even amazing.
It's not even that I'm not talented enough. I've no interest in doing that. And if my kids want to go off and do that themselves, they can. But
and I guess why I brought that up, like, I am in awe of those women that do that. Like, that, what a skill.
To stop pretending. I know that, like, she's saying that, right? But she's winking at me and making, like, she's actually making gestures with her hands, indicative of the fact that she thinks that they're wankers. And on that note, we're going to go on to the best questions that I ask all day.
Can I just say one more thing, though?
Go.
I could have gone to that place of comparison. Like, Lucy's mother is so much better than me. I send my daughter to school in a pajamas. That's the same colour.
And you should have just told her you're the character in the boy in the striped pajamas, okay? Move on. Move on.
Yeah.
Isn't that
So
right?
don't think that quickly. Someone else said you should just handed her your book and just dressed her in...
As you.
As me.
That would have been so much better.
Slightly narcissistic, but...
A little bit, but that's okay. That's okay. You're allowed it when you're an author. Actually, would you tell everyone the name of your book and where it's available?
Yes, my book is called The Steps. It is available in all good bookstores, online as well. You know what? Lots of people have said to me since I've launched the book, it's actually really good.
Great.
People have said to me, it's actually really good. I'm not sure where that has come from, but I think maybe when you read a book like my book that's written by a psychologist, scientifically proven and it's backed, but also it has lots of bits of me in it and lots of bits of my clients that people can relate to, but stuff that actually works and that makes a difference.
That's so important, isn't it?
Yeah. So if somebody is struggling with anything, anxiety, self-worth, that inner critic that can be there for so many of us, conflict in your relationship, grief, pick up the book and read it and do the little exercises. And there's also guided meditations and it will change things. It will make life easier. I also think it's a gorgeous book to give to somebody.
Yeah.
Like someone in my life recently had a miscarriage. And it was for those people as well that I was thinking, I know sometimes I'll buy something for people, you know, if they've lost their dad or they've had a miscarriage or whatever. You want to just do something for them. Buy them the book and the book helps.
That's lovely. And like you say, just to help people a little bit along the way, because life's tough and it's a long old road.
Yeah.
And there's definitely more speed bumps than we ever would have anticipated as children. So yeah.
Yeah. Your questions, tell me.
And it is a lovely book. My questions.
Thank you.
What bit of advice would you give young people today?
I actually love the way we're starting to ban phones. I wish I could protect my daughters from phones. And already my daughter's 7. She's like, how old am I going to be when I get my phone? I really wish we could protect our children from that. But that's maybe more for parents. For children, I do everything I can to build up my children, you know, to just tell them they're deadly. And my 7-year-old like runs up and back in front of the mirror and flicks her hair and she thinks she is like I don't know where she got her confidence from.
Maybe you're giving it to her because you're building her up.
Well, hopefully. But I think there's more, you know, I think maybe she's born with it as well a bit. But anyway.
Or maybe it's Maybelline.
It's like, is it Maybelline or L'Oreal?
No, Maybelline.
Because you're worth it. Both are relevant. I wish that we could just sit our children down or, you know, and when I say children, I mean like not just my children, the youth of our society, help them to see how amazing they are. You know, I think if we could just work on building up our youth and helping them to stand firmly within themselves, that life would be very much easier for them. And that's the gift that I try to give to my clients, to let them know how worthy they are, like to help them remember their worth, because we can do anything if we believe in ourselves. And if we believe that we have the right to look after ourselves and stand up for ourselves and put ourselves first, like take that hour a week to do yoga class. Like we're so deserving of that. So I think if I could go in maybe to talk to teenage girls or something and help them to actually remember how worthy they are, that would make a massive difference to them, to their lives. Yeah.
And what's the meaning of life?
I'm like a real romantic at heart and a real softie. I think it's love. Like I think there's a study done, the longest study on human development has been done by Harvard, and it's years into the study. I think they've been doing it now for over 80 years, 87 years, 90 years, around that time. And it's on what contributes to our health and our happiness and our relationships. Time and again have been found to be the biggest predictor of us living long, healthy lives. It protects our relationships that are significant and meaningful to us, like protect us in so many ways, like cognitively, physically, like emotionally. So I think it's love and our relationships, and I think it's about allowing ourselves to nurture them and to show up in them as ourselves in an authentic way. Because we work so hard and sometimes we need to financially, and that's really important. I would hate someone to leave this podcast and think, oh, you know, how privileged it is for her to be able to say, I want to work less. I need money. I need money to pay my bills. But it's about how can I do both? How can I pay my bills, but also be there for my children and my husband and my friends in the way that I want to. And maybe, and there has to be a sacrifice for that. Like, and it could be a holiday, or it could be, fancy jeans or whatever. But I think the purpose of life and the meaning of life is all about love, which sounds so corny.
No, it doesn't. It sounds absolutely right, of course. Clodagh, where can people find you if they're looking for you?
On Instagram.
Apart from in bookstores.
In bookstores. On Instagram at The Wellness Psychologist. My podcast is Unspoken. My website, you'll find it very easily if you look up The Wellness Psychologist or Dr. Clodagh Campbell. And yeah.
It's been a pleasure, Clodagh. We'll have to have you on again.
I'd love to.
Plenty more to talk about.
We could continue for hours.
Shot the breeze for much longer, but we'll have to leave it there today. Thank you so much.